Hello. In this video, I was kind of thinking about the bingo program that we're going to make, and I thought, well, what if you actually wanted to play the game when you were done? Well, you'd kind of need some random thing to tell you, what word had come up, right? You need a random word picker, and I thought, okay, well, that's a good example of we can do some file I/O with that. It'll be real quick, easy application. So I'm going to make a new solution here. I haven't made the bingo program yet. But I'm going to make a bingo project here, and inside of that I'm going to make a Windows form app just called Bingo Picker, and this will be the thing that actually so once you've given out everybody their cards, this will pick the word that people get to put a token on. So let me click OK here to create a new forms app. This will be real easy. Famous last words. Okay. Alrighty, let's do a form app here, and let's call it. I'm going to set the text property on the window to be Bingo Picker. Why did I choose a form app? I guess because I wanted to have the menu strip. So let's bring up the toolbox, and then let's put a menu strip on here, and let's put a file menu, and how about just a quit option there? File quit, or why quit? It should be exit. We've had exit every other time. All right, there we go. And then let's double click on that, and application.exit. There we go. All right, so now we've got our little interface here. So let's think about what we're going to make. What we'll do is we'll put a big kind of text box here, like a giant text window. We'll make the font real big, and then we'll have a button down here that lets us pick the file list, and now maybe we'll have a button that just picks something out of the list, and maybe we'll put the place where we select the list up here. Let's do that. So I'm going to go to my form. Let me add another one called choose. I'll say open list, open word list. There we go, and drag it up there so it's on top of exit. And then let me double click on this guy here. So here's where I want to open up my file, and what it's going to do is it's going to read in a list of words. So what are we going to do here? Let's go up to the top. Inside of the class, let me add a list of words. So it'll be a list of strings. Words. Equals new list of strings. Okay. There we go. And then let's also have a string for our file. The file that the user selected. We'll just call it file name there. And I don't know, maybe sorry, it's a list of string. All right, so we've got a list of strings and a file name. So now let's go down here in our open word list file menu handler. So what I did was I just went to the file menu and I selected open word list, right? I double clicked on that and it created that function for me. So let's now allow the user to open up that file. So when you want to do that, you need an open file dialog. And actually, since we're going to be using some file stuff here, let's go up to the top of our program and add system.io to our list of includes up there. There we go, system.io. So let's, what are we going to do? Is it a file open dialog? File, no, or is it an open file dialog? Open file dialog. There we go. That's what we want. Open file dialog. And let's give it a name. OFD equals new open file dialog. And let's see what we've got in our open file dialog. I think we can set a file name or a filter. Let's think about the filter. I'm going to have to go Google this. What this does is it allows you to pick like just the text files or just the HTML files. So I have to go look at the syntax for that. All right, so your best bet here is MSDN. I went into there and I looked up the Open File Dialog class, and it gives you an example of this. And it's very easy to use, and it even gives us exactly what we want here. So we can specify what types of files we want to open. So actually, I'm just going to copy this line right out of the docs, and let's go back to our program, and mine was called OFD. There we go. So now it's just going to ask us for text files. So now, how do we open up the file dialog? Well, it has a show dialog function. So if we look and see what's in our OFD object, there is a function called show dialog, and this actually pops up the dialog and returns us a button code based on what the user selected. So let's see, is it dialog result.id OK? I think OK is the one we want. So if the user selects OK, then open and read the file the user selected. So let's just test it out here. So if I run this, and I go to File, Open Word List, see now it pops up a file dialog, and I can go pick the I can go pick a word list here. So now let's see. So now they've opened up the let's say they've opened up a file. Now let's try to actually read all the lines out of the file. And to do that, the file class actually provides us a function that can do that. It's incredibly convenient. So what it does is it returns you a string array of every line in the file. And I'll call it words, or I'll call it lines, equals file dot. Now, what do we want here? Do we want read all bytes, read all? We want read all lines. There we go. Read all lines. And this read all lines function, if you saw there, it takes the path to the file to read. So how do we know what file to open? Well, it's actually stored in the open file dialog. The open file dialog saved it. And let's see, file name. There we go. Gets or sets the string containing the file name that was selected in the dialog box. So let's try that and see if it works. Now, read all lines will open the file, and then you can see here it says it closes the file. So we don't need a using statement here. There's no chance that that file would be left open. Although it is possible maybe that the file got deleted. So maybe we do want to put a try catch block around there or something just in case. So let's put a breakpoint here and just see if we can get that far. So now what I'm going to do is say File, Open Word List, and I will browse to, oh boy, I should have set the working directory. Bingo demo, bingo, bin, debug. Okay, so let's see, do we have any, oh wait, no, that's not where my words are. Let me go pick my words. Bingo cards, words 2. Let me pick a list here, and I'll say open. And what's the file name here? You can see that the file name is now the, I love working at home. And you can see that that's the path to the actual file. So let's hit F10 here and step through, and you can see that lines now contains 24 entries, every one of which pertains to the current epidemic or the current pandemic that we are afflicted by. So, all right, so there we go. So now what we've done is we've read all the lines into a file. So there it is. I mean, that's incredibly easy to do, right? Open file dialog, set the filter. You don't even need to set the filter. Then just call the show dialog function, and if it returns ID OK, then you've got the name of the file, and now you can open it and read all the text out. Very, very straightforward. So now that we've got our strings read out of the file, let's go add them to that list that we added at the top. Remember, we had words here, and let's go populate that list. So down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a for each loop, or I could use a for each loop. Yeah, for each loop, for each tab. So for every string in that array, I'm going to add it to the word list if it's not. But I'll just do a little safety check here too. I'll make sure that I'm not putting in any empty words. So for every string, I'll call it s in lines, and here I'll say if s not equal to, like, an empty line. Maybe there's a trailing line on the file. We don't want that in our list. Words.add line. So, words.add s. There we go. So for every, read in all the lines and then loop through our array that we got back, and if the word is not empty, add it to our list. So let's say build our list. All right. So that's promising there. Now let's write some code. I'm trying to close this damn window. Dang window. Sorry. Whatever. So now let's write some code to actually shuffle our list. And so let's write a function here that actually shuffles our list. So now, when you go down to the bottom of the file, sometimes I do this. This is the end of the namespace. This is the end of the class. And then this is the end of. Now here's a really useful tip. Control and then the closing curly brace will jump you to the matching one. So if I highlight this and I hit Control close curly brace, it jumps me to the end there. So this is my end menu open, file open. All right, so let's write a function, and that tells us where the functions end and the class ends and all that, and where to put our functions. Let me add a function called shuffle. And shuffling a list is actually pretty easy because all we have to do is pick a random word out, delete it from the list, and then add it back to the end. It's just kind of like pull a card out of the middle of the deck, stick it on the end of the deck. So let me make a random number generator here. Random r equals new random. And now let me make a for loop that runs a whole bunch of times. For tab 1000. Boom. Okay. So now let me generate a random number. Int index equals r.next. And how many words do I have? I don't know. Let me ask the word list. Words dot, it's a list, so it's got a count property. So that'll give me a random index, and I'll say string s equals words sub index. So get out the word, and then let me delete it. Get a word, and then let me remove that from the list. So words dot remove at, and let me give it the index. So I've deleted it from the list, and then let me add it to the end of the back into the list at the end, or I could insert it at the 0 or something. Either way, it doesn't matter. Words dot add s. So if I do that 1,000 times, I'll end up with a shuffled list. All right, so now that we've got this shuffle function, after we load in the file, let's shuffle the words. Okay, so let's call our shuffle function there. So after we've loaded in our words, they should all be shuffled. So now I think what we need to do is go build our interface here. So how are we going to do this? So we load in our words, we shuffle them, and then maybe we need a counter. So every time we ask for a new word, we just pick the next thing out of our shuffled list. And so let's do that. We don't need. Turned out we didn't need file name. Let me add a. I'll call it like current word, and I'll set it equal to 0. So this is the index. Okay, so let's go build out our interface. Let's add a text box, and we'll make it. We don't want it to be multi-line, but we do want it to be pretty big. Let's go set the font on this thing to be pretty big. So what property would that be? Could have sworn I saw it down there. Font. let's pick, I don't know, Arial. Let's pick something big, like 36 or something. There we go. Maybe that's too big. I don't know. And then let's even make it multi-line and pull it down like that. Okay. Something big. And we could change the color on the background if we want. And then let's throw a button on here. Toolbox. Let's add 2 buttons here. I'm going to call this one button 1. I'm going to call that next word. And then I'll add another button here. Maybe this will just be like a reset button. Okay, so, and then, let's make this fun. Let's throw a timer on here. So, to make it a little more interesting, and let's double click on our timer. Alrighty. Okay, so let's think about, let's handle our reset function first here. So let's double click on reset. What is reset going to do? It's going to call shuffle, and then let's set current word back to 0. So that's if we want to play again. And you know what? I think we also need to enable, I think we want to disable these buttons if a word hasn't been picked yet. So maybe what we'll do is we'll be kind of clever about this. Let's set these things to be let's set their enabled property to be false, right? So now these buttons don't work because their enabled property is false. And then maybe once we open the word list, oops, I didn't want to do that. When we open the word list, after we've shuffled it, let's enable the text boxes, or enable the buttons. So that would be button 1.enabled equals true. Button 2.enabled equals true. All right, and so now the only thing is, so let's just run it and see what it does. If we start this up, you can see those buttons don't work. But now if I go and I open a word list, now the buttons are enabled, and I can reset the thing and I can pick a new word. Okay, so the way I think we'll get this to work is we'll add a random number generator to the program, and then kind of a countdown timer. And when somebody says next, clicks on next word, what we'll do is we'll start the timer running, and every time the timer ticks, we'll put a randomly selected word into the window until the timer hits 0, and then we'll put the current word in the box. So we know what word's going to end up in the box or in the window before we even start, but it's just going to kind of make it a little bit visually more interesting. So let's go set that up. I'm going to close this. For the random number generator, I've already got one down here, down in the shuffle function. Why don't we just take that and move it up to the top? And then what we'll do is we need a counter here. Let's count, we'll call it an integer, we'll call it counter equals 10. I don't know how many times we want to count down. And then let's go add our timer tick function. So if I go to my form here and I drag my timer on there, let me double click on my timer. There's my timer tick function. So let's say let's subtract 1 from count. Well, let's say if count is equal to 0, let's do that. Or is it counter? If the counter is equal to 0, then let's put the word in the box. the word in the text box. Otherwise, else tab, then put a random word in the text box. And then what do we want to do here? We want to subtract 1 from counter, and right, I think that's it. And then here we would want to set the timer. If we've hit 0, we want to stop the timer. Timer 1 dot. So let's set its enabled property to false. There we go. All right. So let's put the word in the box. So text box 1 dot text equals. Let's see. We've got our list of words, and which word do we want to put in there? The current word. There we go. Otherwise, we just want to put a random word in the text box. So let's put in, we've got a random number generator, r.next, and then what's our upper limit here? Words dot count, right? So some number between 0 and, so this will evaluate to somewhere between 0 and the number of words in the list. Then subtract 1 from the timer. And after we've done this, we probably want to add 1 to the current word. Go to next word. So we'll say if how do we do that? Okay, so let's add 1 to the counter plus plus, and then let's make sure, like, if it goes over the end of the words, let's wrap back to 0 so we don't get an index out of bounds exception. If counter is greater than or equal to words dot count, number of things in the list, then I don't know, let's shuffle the list again and set counter equal to no, not counter, current word. Current word equal. Okay, so I can see I've made a mistake here. Current word equal to 0. So this counter is not supposed to be. This is supposed to be current word. So add 1 to go to the next word, and then if that word is greater than the number of words we actually have, then reshuffle the deck and go back to 0. Sorry, I got off track there. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So when our timer ticks, if we've counted down to 0, now we want to show the current word and turn off the timer. And then if we've gone past the end of the list, we want to wrap around and start over at 0. Otherwise, just put any word in the text box and subtract 1 from the counter. So I think we're good there. Now what we need to do is go update our next word button here, which we never actually did. So let's set our counter equal to 10. And this is how many words we're actually going to display. And then we should just be able to start our timer. Timer1.enabled equals true. Or we just say timer1.start. That would work too. Or we could set its enabled property to true. All right. So let's actually run it and see what it does. There we go. All right. So let's pick a file. And now I'm going to put some breakpoints in here. F9 to set breakpoints. So there's our timer tick function. So wonderful working at home. Okay, now let me say next word, and let's see what it does. So we're going to set counter to 10 and start the timer. So the timer ticked. What's counter? Timer is 10. So put a random word in the box, subtract 1 from the timer, and it ticks again. It puts a random word in the timer. And let's put a breakpoint inside of here. Random word. Okay, so the counter did hit 0. So now let's actually put, so what's the current word? The current word is 0. Turn off the timer. Now the current word is 1. We've gone to the next word. Have we wrapped over, have we gone out past the end of the list? No. So we're good. And what did we end up with? Test kits. Okay. You know what? We should probably center the text in there too. You know, and this really needs some sound effects, like a beep, 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 beep. You know, like kind of a game show, like press your luck kind of thing. Let's run this again and just file, open word list, and let's turn off. Let's get rid of the breakpoints. There we go. Well, it seems to work. It really does need some sound effects, though. Maybe that needs to be centered. Maybe the whole thing needs to be kind of dragged out to be longer and skinnier. And we've got our quit function. So there we go. There's the thing that actually allows us to play our bingo game now. That wasn't so hard, was it? What was the star of the show there? The star of the show was really the open file dialog. Just these two. Just this alone makes it incredibly easy to. I remember having to do this in C++, and it was just horrible, just awful. Now they've just made it so much easier. So just create an open file dialog. And there's actually, if you need to save a file, there's also a save file dialog that does almost exactly the same thing. It works exactly the same way. And then just make sure, set the filter and call the show dialog function. And if the user clicked OK, then the result will be ID dialog result dot OK, and then you can open up the file. So here we're just doing file.read all lines. This just reads all the contents into a string array, and it closes the file. So we don't even need to use our using statement to make sure that that file gets closed. And then the rest of the stuff is stuff we already know how to do: random number generators, working with lists. So there you go. There's your bingo card. Now you can actually go play bingo with your family members. And if you're directly impacted by the coronavirus, I feel, my heart goes out to you. I know they're difficult times, and it can be difficult to watch people trying to make light of all this stuff. So I'm just trying to stay sane and provide a way for, an activity for my family to do after dinner. So we will still actually talk to each other. So I don't know, what you can do though is go make up your own list of words, add some sound effects in this thing, finish the activity, print out the bingo cards, and now you have something to do with your family after dinner. So there you go. Hopefully you found that interesting. It was kind of fun to make, and not that hard if you know the tricks.